All right, welcome to everybody. Thanks for joining us in our conversation here tonight. My name is Digilov, and many of you know me as the Chief Strategist for Dharma Charitable. We're called Firestarter now, which really better reflects the attitude that we have towards fueling growth in the developing world. Today, I want to talk a little bit about the relationship that we all have with a large place on the other side of the world called Africa. To begin, I want us to consider a hypothetical exercise. Picture in your head a country in Africa, limping into the end of the 20th century, facing widespread disease, poverty, and war. Now let's take this country and split it in half. On one side, what would happen if we gathered as an international community to provide its people with everything that they need in their task for development? What if the World Bank gave this side a credit card, which it could use to build roads, schools, and hospitals? What if in times of famine and drought, we sent them food and water? And if we gave them all the weapons that they need to secure peace and stability? Now, in the meantime, let's take the other side and do absolutely nothing. Let's leave them alone. Let's leave it up to them to figure out how to pay for key infrastructural projects without access to credit and without the support of the international developmental experts. Let's leave it up to them to figure out how to secure peace without our guns. Fast forward 20 years. Who's winning? Which side has built world-class hospitals that treat patients from across the region, and which side is still battling malaria, HIV, and other infectious diseases? Where do you think you'd find a private sector thriving, reaping the rewards of early economic growth? And where do you think you'd run into massive corruption? But most importantly, where would you find peace? And where would you find unmitigated war? It wasn't long ago that we heard a rumor that this exact scenario was playing itself out in a place that we call Somalia. There's a place in the south called Mogadishu. That's commonly referred to as the most dangerous place in the entire world. That's where pirates patrol the coast, where warlords battle for territory while radical extremists blow themselves up in the cities, spreading hatred and terror. But the rumors that I had heard were that while the world was focused on pouring countless developmental funds into Mogadishu, a tribe of nomads had gathered in the north without the support of the international community to endeavor on their own path towards development. Rumor had it that this section in the north was thriving, still held in obscurity from the rest of the world, but they had an atmosphere of economic growth and stable peace. If the rumors were true, we had to go see it for ourselves. So in January of this year, we went to Somaliland. What we found there felt like uncovering one of Africa's greatest secrets. In the absence of coordinated international support, individuals had arisen to meet the demands of the people and benefit from the opportunities for growth. Jonathan Starr is one of these individuals. I first heard his name just after I decided not to pursue a career in finance. I was working in a refugee community center in Southwest Houston when a community member told me about a man that was transforming education in the region. I remember my first trip to a Barso Tech. We were standing in this beautiful courtyard, and Jonathan was telling me about the many challenges that they faced and the ones that still lay ahead. But I couldn't help but focus on a conversation that was happening just to the side of me. The vice principal was talking to a student, and he looked like he was in trouble. They were having a conversation that seemed very familiar to me. Responsibility, he was saying. Growing up is about finding opportunities and seizing them, and it takes personal accountability. The student kind of just looked at him quietly and that's when I began to get it. This was the only hallway in all of Somalia, north or south, where a conversation like this could be taking place. Jonathan had committed himself to building a school in the mountains of Somaliland that it would be held to the same standards that we would expect here in the U.S. But in a place like that, that's even crazier than it sounds. Half of the people there are rural nomads. For the better part of the last century, the region has seen nothing but war. Only in the last 15 years has the government been able to dedicate itself to meet the demand of education from the people. With the little revenue that they have, they built a national curriculum. They sent textbooks out to rural communities around the region. But by their own statistics, only 50% of the teachers in those schools have had any formal education of their own. So you can imagine how challenging it is for Jonathan and his teachers when their incoming 9th grade class has 3rd grade aptitudes in mathematics and 1st grade reading skills. They don't really have any functional ability to speak English at all. And so, in the last 30 years, there hasn't been a single student accepted into a Western university from all of Somalia. But I was struck by the similarities that I found between students there and the ones that I would come to find here. I used to tutor a girl, and she had inspirational quotes all over her room. Yes, I can. Always give your best. Always give 100%. And when I was there, I saw a quote written on a wall, and it said, yes, I can. And it was incredible to me that the same exact words were written here, but they had such a different meaning when they were written in the mountains of Somaliland. This boy had put these inspirational quotes all by his bed, from religious leaders, philosophers like Desmond Tutu, and I saw one of the quotes by somebody that I wasn't familiar with. So I asked the kids, I said, who is Mubarak? And they looked at me and they said, oh, well, that's him. That's Mubarak's bed. He had posted a quote from himself by his bed. But in this case, I think it was totally worth it. I think back to a lesson that I learned from a teacher who taught in a classroom for children with multiple impairments in HISD. She used to say that if you give kids the opportunity to surprise you, sometimes they'll do just that. Mubarak Muhammad, like many kids his age, was born in a refugee camp in Ethiopia. At the age of 8, for the first time, he ran away from home to a nearby town. His parents came to get him, but he kept running away until they had no choice but to let him go. Mubarak refused to accept life in a refugee camp, waiting for someone else to come and help him. Though he had lived so little of his life, he knew that there was something else better out there, and he was determined to find it. At the age of 9, he ran away and spent days without water, crossing the desert until somehow he made it to Somaliland's capital city of Hargeisa. An orphan street kid, Mubarak enrolled in a public school where every year he had a 50-50 chance of having a teacher who couldn't read or write. When his books kept getting stolen from the streets, he made a deal with a local workshop so he could have a locker where he'd keep his few possessions. Mubarak's thirst for education led him to somehow get his hands on an entrance exam so that he could become one of the first students in the Abarso Tech School. Just a few weeks ago, he received notice that he was accepted into MIT, where he'll be going in the fall. He and his classmates are the first students accepted into a Western university from all of Somalia. I think it's an incredible story. And Jonathan is really an incredible man. He's an example of somebody who refused to compromise his standards when it came to providing services to the people of Somaliland. But there was another woman that I met there who, perhaps more than anyone else, was able to leverage her unique role in society for the benefit of the men and the women in Somaliland. I was sitting in my hotel reception area when a woman walked by wearing elaborate colors, which isn't really all that unusual in Somaliland, but this woman was walking about 3 paces ahead of a pack of 10 men. So I knew I had to meet her. After a long career as a midwife and a health worker for the UN, stationed across the Horn of Africa, Edna Aden decided to do whatever it takes to build a world-class maternal care facility in her native land, one that she herself would be comfortable using. But the efforts of her work ended up being perhaps even greater than she could have imagined. People kept showing up that are neither pregnant nor women, she told me. What am I supposed to do? This is a hospital. So we began to treat them. Today, Edna Aden's hospital attracts sick from across the Horn of Africa, Ethiopia, Somalia, and Djibouti. Health workers around the world turn to her hospital as a shining example for treatment of fistula, a condition that affects women in only the poorest countries who give birth without medical care. It's an incredible story what Edna has been able to do. But what's really most incredible about it is that it's more than just a hospital. By building a facility with maternal care at the core of its mission, Edna has ensured that there will forever be an unquestionable link between women's health and general health in the region. She's been able to put women on the front lines of the battle to improve health for the population as a whole. And by doing so, she makes sure that there will always be a seat at the decision-making table for women in Somaliland. But if you and I had all the money in the world, we couldn't figure out how to do what Edna has been able to do. Edna, as a native of the land, is able to tap into her local ties to make sure that the impact of her work is felt across the Horn. Surgeons from around the world come to her hospital and spend weeks performing the same operation over and over again for people that travel great distances. But you can't just send an email to a rural nomad to tell them about the opportunity to receive medical care. Edna is able to utilize hyper-connected tribal networks that are able to spread news of an opportunity overnight to thousands of people. The work that they do at her hospital in maternal care, preventative health, and limiting the spread of infectious diseases reverberates and has an impact on every Somali, present or future. Every month, Edna sends her own pension from the UN directly to the hospital as an operating budget. But of course, she couldn't have done it all by herself. That's the question that we at Firestarter grapple with every day. There's a lesson that I learned in the brief time that I worked at Salient, an investment firm here in town. You don't invest in an idea. You don't invest in a strategy. You don't even invest in a company. You invest in people. So when we think about charity, we have to consider the same ideals. We can't just send money to people that look like they need it the most. We send our social dollars to the people that inspire us to action. At Firestarter, we have a holistic approach to giving charity and to helping fuel growth in the developing world. It's been a pleasure to tell you guys about just 2 of our asset classes today in health and education. But I could have told you about countless other individuals who are reshaping their homes in Somaliland. I could have told you about the lone woman who gave up a comfortable life in London to move to Hargeisa and provide microfinance, the only formal access to credit of any kind, to the women of Somaliland. Or I could have told you about the private enterprise that's thriving and helping to evolve industrial transition in the region. Like the single man who employed 100 illiterate nomads to be electricians, mechanics, and daily laborers at his mine, which is the only operating mining facility in all of Somaliland. Of course, I could have also told you about the one man known locally as the engineer. He's helping to use private funds to build roads all across Somaliland. Ain't no mountain high enough for the people of Somaliland to be kept from their dreams of building their country. But it's important for me to share with everybody what you can do to help these people who are helping themselves. Firestarter is gathering support for the Abarso Tech School and Edna Aiden's Hospital. It costs only an incredible $1,800 to send a boy or a girl to the Abarso Tech School for a year, and that includes room and board. And Edna Aiden's Hospital, though it's the most modern medical facility in the region, is still fighting to get the diagnostic equipment that they need to support surgical procedures and mammographic exams. Somewhere, probably sitting just a few blocks away from here, is a piece of equipment gathering dust that can transform the lives of the women and men in Somaliland. And maybe someone in this room is waiting for the chance to help us get it there. But there's also a role that every individual can play. Firestarter is running items of value fundraisers, which are probably the easiest way for any company, school, religious group, or anybody to raise money. We do all the work for you. We come to your place, we gather items of value from the friends. A week later, we come back with a check. You take half, and we take half to help our global efforts and support the organizations that are reshaping their homes. But most importantly, there's a very crucial role for us all to play. As individuals, simply knowing that a place like Somaliland exists helps to support the efforts towards peace that have succeeded amid conditions that have historically led to nothing but war. I want to thank you all for coming tonight. First of all, Seth Stolman has made an amazing exhibit, which is just over there, and all the proceeds are going to Edna's Hospital and the Abarso Tech School, so I really want to thank him for that contribution. I also want to let you guys know that Firestarter is here in Houston. If anybody has any questions on how you can get involved to help the hospital, the school, or any other project, please feel free to let me know. Thank you all for coming. And also, it's my good friend Greg's birthday, so wish the birthday boy a happy birthday. Thank you. Thank you. There will be no Q&A, because if you have a Q, the A is somewhere in this room. So please have conversations with one another and look for those A's. Thank you very much. Yeah.